Hello retro fans, welcome to another episode of C64 Customs, and this time I'm talking about a piece of hardware that is not very new to the C64 scene, but fortunately it is available again, and interestingly this is adding some functionality to the C64 which is sort of unique, I have to say. And with this little cartridge we get additional features for the C64, which is perhaps not really the main, let's say, area where you expect usually the C64. And therefore I'm going to have a look at this cartridge and software delivered with it. And maybe just as a short warning, this is not going to be a straightforward hardware review and how to use this video. This is more or less a let's have a look at it and see what we can do, and there will be some trial and error, there will be some fails. And so if you get bored, then feel free to skip forward a little bit here and there. And otherwise, feel free, grab your popcorn and your soda, and then let's start the journey. So, and here we go. And as you have seen in the title screen already, I'm talking about the Kerberos C64 Midi flash interface. And we can have a look at this from this perspective as well. And as you can see, this is a transparent version. And the story behind this is basically that the C64 is not so well known for its MIDI capacity, or it's not so well known as the music production system like, for example, the Atari. And as I was going to start to make my first attempts to create music with the help of the C64, I recognized that there are not so many solutions to use the C64 as, let's say, a standalone synthesizer, or as a synthesizer integrated in a DAW system. And the main thing that comes to my mind, or well, I think the mind of others as well, is basically the Messiah project, which is a small cartridge with a MIDI input and some software specifically designed to use the C64 as a monosynth synthesizer, as a drum machine, as a 303 machine, or there is even a small song production system, a sequencer, on this cartridge already, as well as a sampler, which is able to play samples. You cannot sample anything, but you can load your own samples, and then you can use this as, well, a sampler. But this system is very, let's say, restricted to the main idea of using the C64 as a sound, producing device. So this is not really a cartridge which you can use to feed music information into other systems, for example. And as I said, the main purpose of the Messiah cartridge is really very straight. So you have basically the devices or the software package I have mentioned already. And if we talk about, let's say, polyphonic synthesizer, if we talk about something that brings a bit more, let's say, newer sounds to the C64, then there's basically one cartridge to mention, and I think it's really outstanding in terms of the sound possible to create with it. And this is basically the synth card 64, which is really a very, very interesting project. And I was very excited as I was able to get one and started my first attempts on the C64. But as you can see, it is lacking a MIDI interface. And I'm more on the press a button, play a pattern, turn some knobs side of the music production. I'm not that much into playing with a keyboard or something like this. So for me, it was a little bit cumbersome to get this included into my, let's say, music production setup or whatever we want to call this. And basically there was just one chance, and this was to use an interface card like this one. And this is a Dartel Midi card where we have MIDI in, MIDI out, MIDI through. And basically this cartridge is well, adding the functionality of MIDI to the C64, but as we all know, it is a little bit tricky to run two cartridges on the very same time on one C64. But fortunately, the synth card is designed in a way that if you start a system, the program on the synth card is loaded into the memory and then the cartridge is no longer required. So if you are really brave, you can start your C64 with the synth card inserted. And then as soon as the program is started, you remove the cartridge and then you plug in the Dartel MIDI card, which is basically not what I really recommend, but well, it is possible. And to kind of bypass this, there is a chance to use an adapter like this. This is a dual port expander, and here we can basically add our MIDI cartridge as well as the synth card to the C64, and then we can connect this to the system, or we just swap the cartridges maybe in this way. And then well, that's pretty tight. And then we can add this to the system, and then we can plug in our cables on the top of this cartridge. But as you may imagine, if you really, it's not that I'm doing this, but if you think about using the C64 in a stage environment or something like this, or in a busy, crowdy music studio, then this is by far not really a very good solution. So I was searching on the internet whether I can find something else, and in the meantime I was able to find a MIDI card which has been produced somewhere in 1980 something or so, and this looks very much like a homemade product, but it has some touch of well, a standard serial production product. So there's even Gelling House or something like this written on it. And if you dig through the library of my videos, you will probably find the one where I have tested this one. And surprisingly, it really works. So it looks really a bit strange, but as you can see, it is not so complicated to create a MIDI card. But this card is basically nothing else than, let's say, this Dartel card in a different format. But this hasn't helped for what I was looking for. And back in 2017, so at the beginning of 2017, I was quite surprised to learn that it was really about 3 years ago. I was able to find the Kerberos MIDI flash interface, and I got this basically as a second-hand product, because this is the cartridge out of the first batch produced of the Kerberos cards, and as far as I know, I think Frank has produced about 50 or something like this, and they were sold out in minutes, so to say, and there was no chance to get this on a, let's say, standard order base or something like this. So I was asking at the forum 64 if someone has this cartridge in a box or in the shelf or wherever, and if somebody is able to sell it to me. And this was the chance to get my very first Midi cartridge, my very first Kerberos cartridge. And you may wonder what's going to be the difference. So as the name say, it's a MIDI flash interface. And the interesting thing is that we are able to flash, let's say, programs to the Kerberos cartridge. And therefore, we basically combine these two cartridges into one. And now we have the flexibility to have a MIDI interface with whatever cartridge we want to run and whatever program we want to run, as long as it is basically using MIDI. But you can use it for other things as well. And therefore, this is indeed a very interesting product if you want to use your C64 as a music machine, system, synthesizer, whatever you want to call this. Because it's pretty compact, it is very robust, the construction is very solid. You have even this little kind of foot, whatever you want to call this. So if you plug this into your C64 and you connect cables, then you're not going to bend your expansion port. So this is a very cool feature. You have a reset button, and therefore this is a really all-in-one solution that is indeed very handy. So I was very excited to learn last year, 2019, that Frank is going to produce another batch or another series of Kerberos cartridges. And I learned this through the Google group, which I have joined shortly after getting the first one. And therefore I learned that he is going to produce another series of cartridges. And the first batch was gone in seconds. It was really impossible to react so fast to get one out of the first series. But I don't care which series I get, as long as I get one. And I learned that he's going to sell this via the Protovision shop. So I wrote to Protovision and was asking whether they can accept some kind of a pre-order for the next batch of Kerberos cartridges. And so I was able to get another one. And as you can see, I went for the transparent version just to have a different look, and I kind of like transparent cases anyway. And I have to admit I had a glance inside as well. So the hardware is really identical. It is the very same PCB, very same version, and very same components, so to say. So he hasn't changed anything at all. At least I can't see it. But well, there's basically no reason, because the first one is working like a charm. So never touch a running system, and therefore it is now possible to use the Kerberos cartridge on the C64 without hunting them down on eBay or other sources. And what I want to do today, and this has been kind of asked by Bowie Branca, thanks for the question, in the or to the last video where I was talking about the Ultimate64 firmware upgrades, and I was briefly testing the Kerberos cartridge as well, and he was asking whether I can check the MIDI functionality. And I just recognized that I have set up the wrong C64, but basically I think for the sake of this video we stick to this one, and I will check if everything works fine on the Ultimate64, maybe for another episode, or I'm just doing this and tell him the answer straight away. But yeah, what I want to talk about today as well is the software that has been delivered to the Kerberos cartridge. And interestingly, I found the Kerberos cartridge not alone in the box, but I got a I got a professional USB MIDI 1-in 1-out interface as well. Well, the package isn't looking so professional at all, so I hope the product is at least a little bit better. And I'm going to test this in combination with the Kerberos cartridge, and this is basically today's mission. So let's make some space here. I mean, we have to keep in mind in terms of flash cartridge, that's not going to be the Mercedes of the flash cartridge if we compare this to the Ultimate 2 Plus, for example, or if we compare this to the Easy Flash, or the newest cartridge I've seen so far is the Kung Fu cartridge. So that's basically not the main purpose of this cartridge, but we're going to have a look how this is basically designed. So as a first step, let's unbox this MIDI interface. So the professional look continues on the inside. So I'm not sure whether this is just a transportation issue or if it is really shipped in this way. So I think this is not really very specific to the Kerberos cartridge. It's just yet another USB MIDI interface. And nowadays it's really a little bit strange to have connectors like this, since most of the common MIDI interfaces, or basically all your common newer devices, are operating over MIDI, over USB, and it is really actually quite hard to find keyboards with MIDI out and DIN MIDI out, so most of them are USB. And well, let's plug this into my Windows system and hopefully everything survives. So there's some blue glowing. Not sure if this is a good or bad sign. We will find out. And let's connect the Kerberos cartridge to the C64 as well. And we got MIDI in and MIDI out. So hopefully it is meant in a way that this is really out. So then we have to connect this to in, and MIDI out we have to connect to MIDI in, we have to connect to MIDI out. And fingers crossed, no flames. Everything looks fine so far. And let's see whether we can get a picture as well. Kerberos menu V1.1 main menu. Start from slot, easy flash start, transfer from PC Mac, configuration, hardware reset, Kerberos off, reset to 64 basic prompt, Midi Test, Kerberos hardware test, about. Well, then let's start at the bottom. About. Wow, animated Kerberos logo. Top backers. Oh, cool. Well, very nice. Looks like a lot of people are involved in the development of this product. Then let's perform a Kerberos hardware test. This looks indeed a bit scary, but well, error sum count 0. Midi test. Send node on, send node off. Sending node on, sending node off. So for this, I think we need a program on the PC side to see if there is some data coming or not. And I have prepared something. I bet I'm going to press the wrong button. No, I'm right. Okay. And this is basically the Windows program that has been shipped with the Kerberos cartridge. And here we can see Midi config and test. Where is it? Yep. I was expecting a different Midi interface. So maybe we have to restart the program. Can't see any error message on Windows side. So let's try this. Let's restart the program. And here we go. USB MIDI interface. That's fine. MIDI in data. So now if we're going to send node data, we can see our Windows system is receiving MIDI information. And maybe we can send MIDI notes from here. But we have to say that we want to send this to... OBS isn't capturing the menu. That's interesting. Okay. So you can't see what I'm doing, but you can see the result. Send note on. And we can see on the Kerberos side, we got some MIDI information, and we even have a test sequence. Oh, it is just sending keys to the Kerberos cartridge. That's totally fine for me. So first thing done, the MIDI interface is working, which is basically very nice. And let's see if we go back to the C64 side. What else we have on this menu? Reset to 64 basic prompt. That's probably not going to be so useful right now, but if you want to program your MIDI software in BASIC, then that's probably the way to go. Hardware reset, Kerberos off. No, I'm not going to do this. Configuration, mirror MIDI in to MIDI thru on. No. Mirror MIDI out to MIDI thru off. Makes sense or not? Depends. Cartridge disk drive number 9, cartridge disk drive number 10. Auto start slot 0 off, save and back without save. Okay, I think we'll leave this for now and see if we can transfer some stuff to the Kerberos cartridge. And I think we have to switch back to our little Kerberos tool and see what we can send to the Kerberos cartridge. And basically, the stuff we can see here right now is well provided officially to the Kerberos cartridge. So first thing I'd like to test is basically synth card, and we select this, and then PRG slot number 1, send PRG and start no flash, flash PRG. Yeah, we want to flash this, so let's test this. And we can see at the bottom right hand corner that something happens on the C64 side. So the Kerberos is basically receiving data, and well, the MIDI interface is a serial interface, so this is not very fast. So if you consider flashing a huge amount of programs over this interface, that's probably not a good idea. And can have a look at the slot directory, and as we can see, there is already something on the Kerberos card, and I may have overwritten what has been stored in slot 1 already. Well, that's live. So let's have a look at those things at the Kerberos cartridge, and then we can start PRG from slot 1. And here it is, synth card, and its full glory. Actually, we have no sound, looks like, which is interesting. Because we should have some sound. It's not muted. Nope, no sound. That's strange. So maybe I have... Nope, I haven't. Ah, I see. Okay. I'm using the FPGA SID and I haven't wired to the video output port, so we may switch to a different system or we use a different cable. So that's basically where we start with our it's going to be a little bit experimental part, and so I need a 3.5 stereo jack to cinch adapter, which is basically available from here. I have to borrow this. And then we can plug this into much better. So let me listen to it for a second because I can't hear it right now. Rumble, rumble. So if you are a frequent visitor of my channel, and I mean we started this episode with the intro video as well, you may recognize some of the sounds, and yeah, I'm using synth card a lot for my music stuff. And if we go to Midi Test and start test sequence, we can see the Windows program is sending a rather boring test sequence to synth card, and it is reacting via MIDI. So this is working very fine. Yep, I think that's going to be enough for this test. And basically that's really, I'm quite surprised that this is working out of the box. So let's reset that whole thing and have a look what we have on this cartridge as well. So start from slot, synth card, SID wizard, depacking. Wow. Normal, medium, light, extra, bare, demo. Okay. What's demo? Let's have a look. So I have to admit I have no idea how to operate this program, and I wasn't even aware that this is using MIDI. So that's probably something I may have to dig into, and looks like a standard SID tracker so far. But well, never judge the book by its cover. That's really something I may have to investigate what we can do with this program. So let's see what's next. Synthesizer. That sounds interesting. And it's hopefully a little bit more straightforward. Simple synthesizer demo. Use MIDI channel 124 for waveform. Okay. Is it already active now? Let's move to our Kerberos card. Send node. It makes some noise. Okay. This is just coming on one side because actually the SID is just playing on one voice. And I'm using, as I said, the FPGA SID inside, and it is configured that it plays just two voices on the left and two voices on the other side to create some sort of stereo effect. So I think for testing this program we may need a real sequencer, which I do not have installed on this system. It's on my other system, and that's probably going to, well, take too much time to set this up. So let's check. Joe Gun. Sounds like a game. So as you can see, we can use this Kerberos cartridge as a standard flash cartridge. So it is not just limited to music, but we can use this for store, for example, configuration program for the FPGA SID or for the ARM SID, for example. Then you can easily change the configuration, or you can store little games on it. So if you want to have some fun in between. Ah, this looks more like an adventure game. Let's make some sound. Ah, yeah. So either my gamepad is broken or no. Ah, okay. Well, I was afraid of this. So can we basically jump? Ah, I think so. Yeah, I made it to the other side. So anyway, I think we are not going to play adventure games on the Kerberos cartridge all night long. But as you can see, we may have to search the skull and find... Are we going to die now? No! I'm pretty robust. Anyway, so cool, we got adventure games on the Kerberos cartridge. So what's next? Flappy Bird, that's definitely a game. Easy Proc, I think that's related to the Easy Flash cartridge. Usually looks like this. And you can use this to transfer files from a disk drive to the Easy Flash. So this is a bit confusing to me because I wasn't expecting that we're going to use the Easy Proc to transfer files to the Kerberos cartridge, but well, let's have a look if this is going to work. I hopefully have some, oops, cartridge games. Well, on the other side, it makes not that much sense to have cartridge games on a floppy drive. So except for flashing. Well, so let's see. Nope. Nope. So we may have to go for a different device. So let's have a look on this USB stick. So you may wonder what I'm doing here right now. So I'm using this Pi 1541 and here I guess I have some cartridges, yeah. So let's see whether we can find one that's not so huge. So Space Taxi sounds good. Prince of Persia, perhaps. Platman 60K. Well, then let's go for this one. But I think we can't mount this, and probably not going to see this menu. Check, right, help. Help me something. M for menu. Right, CRT2 flash. So now it's trying to access my... Oh, it is working. Oh, I'm impressed. And we said we're going to use... I forgot the name already. Ah, no. Platman 60K. So, probably somewhere here. Here was it. I have no idea how long this is going to take. So, is it doing anything at all? Well, yeah, looks like. At least I can't operate the system anymore. So I have to admit I haven't spent that much time with the Pi 1541 recently. So I assume that there are perhaps new firmwares available, and I may have to refresh myself on this topic. And I just remember that the Pi 1541 has some sort of SD to IC mode, but not as good, as perfect as the SD to IC device. And usually for the Easy Flash and things like this, I use the SD to IC device because it works with standard fast loaders, and therefore it is very easy to transfer cartridge images, for example, which are bigger than disk images, quite easily without swapping disks. But perhaps this is a little bit experimental what I'm doing here right now. So we better flash something from the PC side to a cartridge slot. And I'm not even sure if it's doing something already. At least I can't do anything on the menu anymore. So I assume it is perhaps loading something, or it is simply just crashed. I have no idea. So, well, this is probably... Oh, easy flash start. And now we have... so this is basically some sort of... I'm a bit confused. Let's have a look at the menu. Easy flash start. Start from slot. So basically we got slots which we can use for programs. And then we have this specific easy flash area. How can we escape this? Here. Easy flash start, where we can basically flash one easy flash image to it. Interestingly, that's something I have never used before, but that's probably quite interesting. So I have no idea. If this is music, I think it's a SID collection. Yes. So I have to admit, the stereo configuration is probably not best fitting for this demo sound, but you may remember this music from the Deus Ex Machina demo from Crest. Fantastic demo still, and it is already 20 years old. That's so crazy. That's really crazy. And well, sometimes I got the impression that if I remember such things, then I'm already an old man. Well, drives me a bit nervous, but anyway. So, run stop, control, CBM, delete, reset. Oh, wrong key. Well, okay, cool. So, I think basically we went through the main things on the Kerberos side. Then as a last thing, I'd like to have a look at drive cartridge disk 1. Okay. Open D64 file. You may need one. I think there are plenty. I'm probably not going to test the demo. I would be very surprised if this is going to work. So let's see whether we can use a standard game. Upload D64. Transfer will erase all data on cartridge disk 1. Well, yeah, I think there's nothing stored. So, okay, what we can see is that the sector is counting up in a way I would expect usually the track to count up. So this is basically going to take some time. As I said, transfer stuff over MIDI is not a very fast approach. So I really have to check how we can get this done on the Pi 1541. I mean, if we're going to mount a disk image, then it's probably going to work. I think the issue is that this cartridge images are just plain on the USB stick, and that we haven't mounted a disk image. So I'm not so sure whether it's a good idea to interrupt this now. Track 11 already. So basically a long way to go. Then, well, let's pause this for a while and then let's fast forward to the result. So here we are again, so we're almost done with this one. At least I guess it will stop at track 35, which is basically the standard track. Yeah, now it's writing directory, and now we have transferred a disk to the Kerberos cartridge. And yeah, let's step back and let's see when we jump to basic now. And load a directory from disk 9. Oops. Wow. Very experimental. Device not present error. Interesting. Cartridge disk 1, drive number 9. Drive number 10. Back without save. Save and back. Settings saved. Transfer hardware reset. Comes set to the basic prompt. Well, that's basically the way I expect this to work, that we can jump back to basic and access our disk drives. But it looks like there's no disk drive. So the Pi 1541 is working. But not the Kerberos drives. So that's something I really have to dig into, because this is basically what I had in mind as the last part of this video. Because one special thing is that the Kerberos cartridge is sort of shipped with a thing called Pro 16, and as far as I remember, this is basically, oh, we have to change the window. And this is the original Steinberg music software, developed somewhere in the late 80s, I think. And this is a, well, they call it a music software, music production system. And my idea was to transfer this to the Kerberos cartridge and go through the tutorial to see whether we are able to create something that sends MIDI out of the C64 and if we are able to receive this on the Windows PC side. But I'm afraid that we going to spend another, I don't know, 10 minutes to transfer something to the Kerberos cartridge, and then it's probably not working the way we have expected. But well, we can transfer this program to the cartridge and see if this is going to do what we expected. So, file transfer, wrong window, select file, Kerberos, Steinberg. And the cool thing is that this is not a weird hacker story or something like this. This is really official. So Frank got in contact with Steinberg. I'm not sure who was the initiator of this, but Steinberg allowed him to distribute the program, including the manual and all that stuff, and to use this with the Kerberos cartridge. And this is basically very cool thing. So start flash PRG, and then we have to use a different slot. As far as I remember, slot A was empty. So put it here. Oh, we got a slot directory. Yes, we can check it from here. If we are in the Kerberos menu. Haha. So T directory. Here we can have a look. So A is empty, so 10 would be fine. 9 is fine as well. Let's go for 10. Fortunately, it is not so huge that this takes so long. It's indeed a bit faster compared to the disk we have transferred. I really have to dig into this. I'm really interested because the idea I have in mind is that if we use a program like Pro 16 or something like SidWizard or something like this, and we want to store what we have created on a disk, it makes really some sense to have a disk emulation on the Kerberos cartridge, so we are not forced to use additional drive solution like the Pi 1541 or the SD to IC or something like this. We can put this onto the Kerberos cartridge and it remains there as long as we want to keep it there. And now we can start PRG from slot. Let's switch over to the C64. Steinberg research. So as far as I understand this is really the grandfather of Cubase. And I have seen this somewhere promoted as Cubase 2 or something like this. I'm not sure whether this story is true, but basically this is a MIDI production system. And interestingly, there is the manual included as well. So let's switch over to this directory. Edit kit instruction manual, pro instruction manual. So I have no idea what is. I'll have a look at this. And let's open up here, which I haven't expected it. So then let's change this quite quickly so that you can have a look as well. I'm not going to need this Explorer windows anymore. And this is basically going to be this window. Here we got the menu. Oh, somewhere else. And in this menu there is basically a tutorial how to use this program. And indeed some introduction, some features, how-tos, and so on. And the basic concept behind composing with Pro 16 is the modular method employed by most programmable drum machines. Build a song a piece at a time. Okay. So, features. Record 16 different tracks per sequence. Record 64 different sequences. That means up to 1024 different tracks. So, save all your songs on floppy disk. Yep, that's what I had in mind. Sync to tape, sync from tape, sync to drum machine. So that's interesting. We can sync this program to an external MIDI sync. That's something I have to check as well. That's probably a little bit too much for this day. And here we have a tutorial. And I just want to go briefly through the first part of it. Set the number of current step to step 1. So by pressing F5 or F7. 1. Okay, done. Let's use sequence 1 as our first sequence. Press F6 or F8 as necessary to get sequence number 1 to appear in the middle of the ribbon. think it's already there. Ah, okay. Yep, one done. Then if you have either erase or mute, set the bar length to 2 for the sequence. Move the cursor over the length box and press F3 a couple of times. Track. Is this the length box? Or is it somewhere here? What the heck is the length box? Number of bars? Channel? I have no idea what a length box is, so we may have to dig through the manual. So let's assume everything's fine. It's just going to be a short test. Move the cursor over the length box. It's loud enough to hear the metronome. Press R on any free track. Wait through the second bar countdown and play the first 7 notes of the tune C, C, G, A, G. Well, without a keyboard, it's going to be a little bit tricky. So perhaps we are not even able to record something. Okay, so we really have to send some MIDI data. So let's have a look whether we can utilize this one. MIDI config test, start test sequence. And now we can see Kerberos Cartridge is receiving something and Pro 16 is receiving something as well. So let's stop this. Stop sequence. Oh, stop. And moving back to our tutorial quite quickly. Stop playback by pressing one stop and move to step 2. Select sequence, yada yada yada, and so on. Press. Now to play back the entire song, move back to step 1 by pressing F7, then switch from sequence mode to song mode, move over the MDE box and press F3. So where's the MDE box? Ah, yeah. So we haven't created a song yet, so I think it's probably not really so interesting to switch to song mode, but no, I'm doing something else. I think I'm screwing up that whole thing. Let's stick to sequence mode. And finally press return. So we have no LED activity, so I doubt that the Kerberos card is sending something, but we should see this here. Nope, there's nothing. So we may have to configure this first. So that's probably going to eat up too much time. Maybe I really dig into this program and then I dedicate another episode to Pro 16 on Cubase, on the C64, Cubase on the C64, I was going to say. I'm still really impressed by what's possible with the C64, and I think for the next episode where we're going to dig into this topic, I will prepare a C64 with Messiah and perhaps the MIDI box 6581, that we can have several instruments playing from the C64. That sounds like a very interesting project, but I think this is going to take too long tonight, and therefore, well, we have already reached the end of this episode, and I think we have covered most of the parts, but what's possible with the Kerberos cartridge. And I will dig into this disk, not going to call it issue, but topic, and see how we can use this emulated disk drives, because this is really something I'm interested in, whether we can store data on the Kerberos cartridge in form of a disk. That would be very nice, and this would create a very compact music production system. And well, that's all so far. If you have any questions, I wouldn't wonder. If so, yeah. So feel free to use the comment section. I'm really looking forward to what you think about this whole thing here. And well, as usually, thank you very much for watching, and feel free to follow me on Twitter or on YouTube if you're interested in more stuff like this. So that's all. Thanks, guys. Have a nice evening. Bye bye.